Hello everyone, welcome to the second video. Before we get into the episode, I want to give a big shout out to this video's sponsor, me, because no one has heard of me yet, and I'm a sellout for my own content. Thank you, me, for making this video. Now, on to this episode's content. In our last episode, we talked about why you should play D&D. As we jump into this episode, you might be asking yourself, what is D&D? D&D is a shared creative experience with others around the game table, or online domain, that uses dice, a shared set of rules, the imagination, and critical thinking to help tell a story. At first, it's going to seem like a lot, and that's okay. There are lots of rules here. But the beautiful part is, you don't need to know them all in order to play, despite what some people might tell you. In reality, the DM is going to have enough of these rules down to be helpful to you, and that's part of what they've signed on to do. And if they haven't, dear God, find yourself another gaming table. Most DMs understand the burdens new players face, and many are just eager you're at their table. So don't put the pressure on yourself. It's okay to not know all the rules right up front. But in the meantime, that's why you're here, right? So let's do our homework. What better way to tell your DM and fellow players around the table that you're excited and interested in being there? It'll go a long way, and most people will be very appreciative that you took the time to learn so that they don't have to spend in-game time teaching you all of the rules. So again, I know there's a lot, but I promise you'll pick it up faster than you think, and you'll have a lot of fun at the same time. Moving forward, this video, and the others to follow it, will focus on the mechanics of D&D 5th edition, and offer thoughts and ideas on how to improve your character, your game, your world, and your time at the gaming table. Alright, let's take a sideline just for a second. I have a feeling some of you might be lost. There are some terms that we use in D&D that most experienced players take for granted. So, let's cover some of the bases. D&D, Dungeons & Dragons. 5e, 5th edition. The game has had multiple different editions come out over time with subtle rule changes or major rule changes to improve the flow of the game. That's all that means. This is the most recent edition, 5th edition, or 5e. PHB, that would be the player's handbook. This is your guide to all of the rules you're going to need as a player. It covers everything as far as classes, races, ability scores, anything that you would need to know. This is your book. The DM, that's the Dungeon Master. The Dungeon Master is in control of the game other than you. They rule the world. Well, maybe rule is the wrong word. They control the world, and they are going to have the world react to your choices. And you, in turn, get to react to the choices that the DM gets to make. There will be a human running your game, pretty different from your standard video game or board game experience. You get to react to someone who's real. That's pretty cool. PC, this means the player character. That's you and the rest of your team. You're going to work together and find ways of challenging that DM to challenging that DM to do better, and that's good. They're going to challenge you to do the exact same. And then there's the dice. For most of you, rolling dice has been Monopoly, 2 6-sided dice. That's your standard, what we would call D6. D&D employs many more of them. We'll start from the smallest and work our way up, as the last one's kind of the most important. This is your D4. It kind of looks like a pyramid. In fact, it is a pyramid. The maximum roll would be a 4. This, again, is your standard D6. It's a cube, and it has 6 sides, ergo 6 numbers. 8-sided die, or D8. 10-sided, D10. There's an additional one they throw in that has a 0 on the end of every number. This is for percentile rolls, the rarest of rolls in D&D, but pretty important when they come out. Roll the two together, and it'll give you a number out of 100%. Pretty cool. This is your D12, and this is your D20. Pretty much all of your rolls are going to come down to this bad boy, with a 20 being the best result, and a 1 being the worst. Now, the 20-sided dice controls just about everything in the game. You're going to use it way more than the others. The others usually just have to deal with damage of some sort, or a couple of neat abilities like with the cleric and their divine intervention, which is a whole other ability in and of itself. We'll cover that later. Anyway, as far as dice goes, if you're getting involved online, there are multiple dice apps that you can use, or random number generators. I've had players use those before. Otherwise, if you want to have a physical set of dice, I recommend you do. You can get them on Amazon for pretty cheap. I know that shipping delays are kind of a thing with COVID right now, but it'd be worth your time. And honestly, with the vast array of color selections and decently crafted quality, you can't really go wrong. Amazon it up. Or, if you're able, support your local gaming stores. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about what D&D really is all about. Your job as the PC, remember that's player character, is to play a person. That's it. You are going to create a person that lives in a fantasy world, although to them it's real, so don't forget that part. And this world is full of possibilities to explore and obstacles to overcome. This individual will be completely up to you to play. You get to be this person, and you will watch them grow over the course of the campaign. That's our way of saying the arc of the story. D&D plays a little more like a TV show than a movie. Your sessions might be an episode, one part of the story arc might be a season, and the overall campaign would be the whole series itself, each story leading into the next, or a completely new series afterwards. And the main characters are up to you and your party to control. And the neat thing is, you may find that you will love and learn things about this person as they learn who they are and what they're capable of. Pretty much the rules, as we find them in the player's handbook, are all focused on how your character interacts with the world. From how good they can swing a sword, to how good they are at solving puzzles, or sneaking around out of sight, or how talented they are at employing magic and its many effects on the world, or even reading another person to determine whether they're being truthful or lying to you. Insight, all of these things have a spelled out formula in which your character can experience success, failure, and all that beautiful gray area in between. Now, when considering your character, one of the best questions you can ask yourself, and I often ask my players, is, what do you want from this character? And what do I mean by want? Well, what sounds like a fun experience to you? Do you want to be up in the thick of it, swinging an axe or a sword? Do you want to be healing people or supporting them, enhancing them with magical abilities and making them terrifying warriors to behold in the battlefield? Do you want to be sly and getting the right shot off at the right time and generally doing everything your party needs you to do off the books? Or do you want to be the face of the party, making allies, enemies, and talking your way out of tough situations? Does magic sound like fun? There are a lot of options there. It's up to you to decide what you want. When asking yourself, what character do I want to play? I find it helpful to employ the 5 W's. Who is this person? What's their name, their sex, their race or species? These are the basics about your character, which can be perceived from an outside perspective most of the time. What are they good at? This would be their class, their job, or their skills that they employ. This is more of an understanding of what their talents are, what they're good at, and what they can bring to the table for an adventuring party. To read more about this part, I have linked in the stuff below, as Matt Colville calls it, the doobly-doo, is the basic rule set as provided on D&D Beyond, which you can make a free account for today. And a lot of Dungeon Masters who use it can actually share all of the books that they've purchased with their party if they have a subscription. For my party, this is the route we'll be going. As I said, creating this account is absolutely free and allows you a place to build an awesome character and have all of the stuff run pretty much for you in an online domain. And it helps keep all of your resources right there in front of you at the gaming table. When did this person decide to adventure? What events in this character's life, aka the backstory, led them to answer the call of adventure? We'll end up dedicating a whole video to this later on, or several, so stay tuned. Where's this person from? And where are they now? This is helpful for understanding the culture that has surrounded them and the culture they find themselves currently immersed in. This should be worked out with your DM to confirm verisimilitude, the willing suspension of belief in order to embrace the fantasy concept. Again, this is more along the lines of figuring out some of what they've learned from their family, their culture, their experiences, their ethical values, and then figuring out where they're going to be in the world. This is helpful to have in order to provide an answer for when the party gets together in the first place. And why does your character choose to adventure? What's the purpose, mission, goals? This is the real heart of your character. This will ultimately be tied into your backstory and deep character development moving into the front story, or the adventure yet to happen. We'll do another video later on that too. And a bonus, how did your character get to where they are? Did they have mentors? Or who taught them? What event launched them down this path? Who inspired them? Maybe a world figure that they've heard about from a local church or the stories they were told as children. Or maybe even who sponsored them? Who stands to gain from their success in adventuring? All of these can make for compelling character choices. As you dive into these questions, which I'll probably put in the doobly-doo below. That's really fun. Colville, if you're watching, you're awesome. You may find others popping into your heads. Heads? Head. That help bring about more reality in your character. What are they like? What are their strengths? Their weaknesses? What makes them likable? What makes them relatable? How do they interact with people? How do they interact with monsters? How do they interact with the world? What do they like? What do they dislike? What are they afraid of? The list can go on and on. And that being said, it's time for you to do your work. I've done mine. Well, I'm always doing that, so it's your turn. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. Thanks for showing up. As we close, if you don't mind liking and subscribing to this video and the channel, it would help me out a lot as I try to get this going. If any of this has been helpful to you, I'm really flattered. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to comment below. I'll do my best to respond as I can. Let's make the best of it. Anyway, as we sign off, remember, adventure is calling. Are you listening?